Hello everyone, it's a Saturday afternoon and I have a few hours free. So my task for this afternoon is to have a look at the clutch system on the MX5. When I was doing my service last week, I realised that there's a bit of fluid leaking out of the master cylinder, which is not good, obviously. It doesn't seem to be very bad because there's plenty of fluid in the reservoir still, but obviously it needs attention. So I'm going to see if I can try and get that out today, and I've got a refurbishment kit which I'm going to try and apply. And I'm going to change all the fluid at the same time and probably change the slave cylinder as well, which, although it's working fine, I may as well change it over, seeing as I'm overhauling the system anyway. So yeah, let's get started. Right, so I have bought this thing called an Easy Bleed kit, which is essentially supposed to make it really easy for you to bleed brake and clutch systems, because what it does is the cap goes onto the reservoir and you're supposed to put spare fluid in there, and then you basically attach this to your spare tyre and it pressurizes the system enough to push fluid through. So I have found a cap. They have various size caps that come with it, and one cap I found does seem to fit, and if I blow through that, it does seem to be pressurized, so that's good. I'm not going to bother connecting it to the spare tyre because I'm just going to blow on it to push the fluid out, and I'm also not going to put more fluid in the bottle because I actually want to empty the system out completely so that I can put new fluid in. So those are the two differences I'm going to make. Okay, so the wheel is off and there is our clutch slave cylinder in there, and I am going to open this bleed nipple and then the fluid will pass through this pipe and into this conveniently placed receptacle, and basically what I'm going to do is just use a spanner to open the bleed nipple and then blow on it until all the fluid is out and in the pot. Right. So I've been trying my best to make this work. I discovered there was a bit of air leaking through the system here where the cap goes on, so I lubricated that with a bit of brake fluid and then redid it, and that seemed to stop it. Tried blowing on it and it just wasn't getting me anything, so I even got out the spare wheel and I've been trying to pressurize it using that, and even that doesn't do anything. And I can hear air leaking out of the system from somewhere. So basically this thing, which cost me a good 20 quid, is completely useless. So kind of to be expected, I suppose, with these kind of things, but still a bit disappointing nonetheless. So now I'm going to have to resort to the old-fashioned method, which is going to involve two people, where somebody steps on the clutch to push the fluid through, and then I have to tighten and loosen the nipple. Okay, so I have recruited my glamorous assistant, Rachel, and what Rachel is going to do is she's going to pump the clutch when I tell her to, and that will force the fluid out of the nipple and into the receptacle. Okay, clutch, pump the clutch. There we go. As you can see, fluid is coming out. Keep going. Okay, stop. Okay, it is leaking a little bit at the bottom there. Yeah, we're doing up here. I'm going to take this off so that the air pressure neutralizes. We've got a long way to go. And we're going to keep going until all the air is, well, all the fluid is out, basically. Are you going all the way in?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to be doing anything. Okay. Okay, we're out of fluid, that's why. Right, so we have now emptied as much of the fluid out as we can. And now the next job is to take off the slave cylinder, and then I'm going to take off the master cylinder and go and refurbish it. Okay, so after a fair amount of swearing, the slave cylinder is now off. There it is there. It's very tricky to get the bolts out because the top bolt, well, just because of the access in general really, as you can see there's a subframe here and the body chassis here, and you just can't really get anything in there. I mean, you can just about get a small spanner in there, but obviously a spanner like that doesn't have very much purchase. So in the end I had to actually slide under the car completely to get at the bottom bolt, and well, actually both of them, I loosened both of them while I was lying under the car, which I found a bit easier, and then got out again just to take it off completely, but not an easy job. And if you happen to have a car that is quite rusty, I would imagine this job will be infinitely harder as well, because those bolts will be incredibly stiff and difficult to get out. Okay, so the new slave cylinder is now on, everything's all tightened. If you look in here, you can see all the main securing bolts are in place, tightened up. The cylinder is on its little holding place for the clutch there, and the union nut here is tightened up for the clutch fluid line that comes in there. I discovered it's much easier to get this line in here if you take off this bolt here, and that just secures this loop of piping to the side of the bell housing, but it means you can move this around a lot easier, so I kind of wish I'd done that to begin with, because it would have made my life a lot easier taking it off. The reason all the bolts are a bit shiny is that I've put a bit of grease on them, just to try and stop them corroding too much, so that next time I have to do this job, or if someone else has to do it, hopefully it won't be too much of a nightmare. Right, so here is the master cylinder, which is a bit difficult to see because there's lots of stuff in the way. According to the manual, we may be lucky and the securing bolts may be on the outside, but it looks to me like there is one securing bolt there. On this side, there's just a nub, which means that the securing bolt is probably on the other side in the footwell. And that means that it's going to be a complete nightmare to get up there. And predictably, it's right behind where this amplifier is that I put in, which is annoying, and that means that I have to remove the amplifier first before I can get at the bolt. Right, success. The master cylinder is now out. Managed to do it without leaking too much fluid. There it is there. As you can see, it's definitely been leaking out of the end there. Looks a bit grim. Oops. Also, there is lots of sludge and crap in there as well, so that'll need to be cleaned out and fixed up as part of the refurbishment. So yeah, I'm going to go and do that now, and then when I'm done, put it all back, and hopefully that'll be job done. Just noticed there is a bit of fluid leaked out there, so I better just get rid of that before it damages the paint. So here we have our master cylinder. I've taken it out, and now we're going to start refurbishing it. So what needs to happen is that this little circlip in the end there, if you can see that, needs to come out, and then inside we'll probably find these. This is a refurbishment kit from Mazda. So it comes with circlip, piston cap and the spring. There's also supposed to be a spacer as well, but I think we just reused the old spacer. So if we look in here, there's lots of gunk in there, and according to the manual, the best way to clean that out is with methylated spirit, which I have some there. So I think the first thing to do is to remove the circlip and take all the innards out, and then it'll be easier to clean all of that out. A little bit more tricky than I thought. There we go. Oh. What a mess. Okay, so now cleaned everything out as best I can. There's still a tiny bit of gunk in the corners there, but can't really get to that. But I don't think it's going to cause any problems. Mainly it's quite clean. Cleaned all inside the bore as well, so that's nice and clean. And that is ready to be repackaged. I struggled a bit with the circlip at first, until I realised that it's actually easier if you get someone to help you, so that they can hold down the plunger while you use both hands to put the circlip in place. Well, as you can see, that was a pretty fiddly job, but it's done now. Circlip is now in place. All of the components are inside. Everything is clean. So we're now ready to fit this back onto the car. Okay, so we're now ready to fit the refurbished master cylinder to the car. This bit is a little tricky because if you look, I don't know if you can see it, but if you look in there, you can actually just see, well, just in here there's the end of the clutch pedal, which basically ends in a stick which then pushes in the plunger, but the stick just stops at the bottom, doesn't hold out straight. So what that's going to mean obviously is that when I try and put the master cylinder back on, it's not going to be lined up. Okay, I think the best option would be for me to suspend it somehow from this side. So I'm going to push it up somehow and hold it like that. Right, I've wedged a bit of newspaper in there. Should hopefully do the trick, so let's give it a shot. Okay, managed to get it in the end. All good, all lined up on that side. And if we have a look inside the car, you can see that the pin on the end of the clutch pedal is in the correct place. It's pushing into the plunger there. So now we just need to screw everything into place and then bleed the system. Okay, so the system is now all bled. The fluid is topped up and everything is now finished on this job. So for those who are interested, the way you bleed the system is you put a pipe on there, which then leads into something that you can collect your old brake fluid in, like that. There's my little bit of pipe there. And basically what you do is you pump the pedal and it pushes fluid through the system, and it also pushes all the air bubbles out as well. So the way you do it is you get someone to sit in the car with you, and you open the bleed nipple, they put their foot down, and then you close the nipple and then they take their foot up, and you basically repeat that process. And what that's doing is it's pushing fluid through but not letting air back in the other end again. And once you've done that for a while, eventually all the air comes out of the system, and when you open the nipple you don't see any air bubbles, you just see fluid coming through, and then you know that all the air is out of the system. And then you close it all up, tighten everything down, Bob's your uncle. So that's that. That's a job done, good one done. And my next job now will be to do the radiator and the hoses. So that will be the next post. So we'll see you then.